On WSOC tonight, priced out of Charlotte. The need never greater. Affordable housing was already an issue in Charlotte, and this pandemic is making it so much worse. Tonight, we're taking you inside homes and hotel rooms where families sacrifice space for the hope of keeping a roof over their heads.
There is nowhere else to go. Stuff is not affordable in Charlotte at all.
We're tackling that issue, asking what the city is doing right now to fix this. Plus, working with your landlord when you're behind.
My apartment complex has been really flexible.
But not everyone is. Our advice on the tough conversation you and your landlord need to have. And it's not just rent. Parents are making some tough choices on which bills to pay.
We ain't paid our light bill in like 3 months.
Thankfully, there's help. Tonight, we're sharing the success stories.
I'm trying not to cry.
And introducing you to the organizations you can connect with. WSOC Tonight, priced out of Charlotte, starts right now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Erica Bryant. Tonight, we dedicate the next 35 minutes taking you in depth on our community's housing crisis. You'll meet the families who are living it and learn about ways to get and give help. We begin by laying out the big picture, the cost of keeping a roof over your family's head. For a one-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, the median price is $990 according to Apartment List. A two-bedroom goes up to $1,150. And now look at neighboring cities. There's at least a $100 difference, which is one reason so many people who work in the city live outside of it. Now more perspective on the cost of a one-bedroom. So many people trying to get by on minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. That means if you work a 40-hour week, you would make $290 or $1,160 a month before taxes. Again, the median rent in Charlotte for a one-bedroom, $990. That means rent would take up 85% of your pay before taxes. Why so many people are working 2 jobs and living with roommates. Renters aren't the only ones hurting. The average home price in Charlotte is up 5% from last year to $252,000. This according to Zillow. Again, that's at least $15,000 more than in surrounding cities. Of course, so many people simply can't begin to afford a house or apartment, especially when 36 million Americans have lost their jobs and people are just trying to survive. To do that, many are living in motels. Now, our Glenn Counts joins us with some first-hand accounts from people who are living in that situation right now. Glenn?
Well, Erica, for a lot of people, a hotel or a motel is their final stop before homelessness. Now, it can cost every bit as much as an apartment. The difference is you pay it 1 week at a time. The sad fact is, though, in the age of COVID-19, a growing number of families can't even afford that. The doorbell at the Southern Comfort Inn is the sound of someone wanting to spend the night, a week, or even years.
You can, think bad and look down on them, but, without Tracy in a place like this, a lot of people would be on the streets.
Wanda Heron has called this place home for 4 years. Tracy Canterbury is the general manager and one of her best friends.
Stuff is not affordable in Charlotte at all. They say it's affordable, but it's not affordable.
Lorraine Sims is a mother of 3 and has lived here since August.
At one point I was sad, because you don't imagine you being in this situation again.
Charlotte's lack of affordable housing has forced a growing number of people into motels to avoid being homeless. That was before the virus. Now it's even worse.
I think the desperation level is extremely high for the families in hotels right now.
Isaac Sturgill is with Legal Aid. He says their phones are ringing off the hook from families who can't pay rent, and a lot of the properties are ignoring the state's current order outlawing evictions.
We have seen some pretty underhanded tactics from other hotels. We've seen things like the hotel shutting off the power or the water.
The Southern Comfort is an exception. The manager sees to that.
When the guests come to me and they're like, Miss Tracy, I can't pay, I always put myself in their shoes. If it were me, what would I do? And there's no way that I can put them out.
I pay her, and I'm getting caught up, but without her, I'd be on the streets.
Because if it wasn't for her, I'd probably still be sleeping in a tent or sleeping behind some abandoned building,
Well, if you need help from legal aid, you can give them a call. That phone number is 855-797-3247. And Erica, before the pandemic, legal aid tells us that they were taking about 20 complaints a week from people who were claiming that their hotel owner was trying to illegally evict them. That is now up to around 65 per week.
Well, Glenn, seeing people brought to tears, you know, this is serious. Thank you. We want to bring in our Joe Bruno right now. Joe, I know you keep tabs on every step that Charlotte makes, and you've learned about apartments the city is working on right now to make housing more affordable.
Erica, the city just signed off on more than 1,300 affordable housing units, but it's going to take a lot more where that came from to climb out of this affordable housing crisis. January 2020. Hundreds of people stood in the rain, all for a shot at living at a new complex on Freedom Drive. One of those people was Tatiana Miner.
The process was very crazy. So you have the first day back in January where we had the application process, and the line was ridiculous. It stretched all the way back past the McDonald's. Kind of had to stand out there the whole time.
She's one of the few people now living in the mezzanine on Freedom. Part of it is still under construction. The project was made possible in part by a $4.5 million investment from Charlotte's Housing Trust Fund in 2017. In 2018, voters approved $50 million for that fund. Last month, the city of Charlotte voted to spend about $15 million for more than 1,300 units. Here are their locations. You can see they're spread across the city. Housing and Neighborhood Services Director Pam Weideman told me the money will go a long way, especially now.
I like to tell people affordable housing was a need before of COVID-19, and it certainly is a need as a result of COVID-19.
The projects include Evoke at Arrowwood, 168 units near one of Central Piedmont Community College's campuses. Mineral Springs Commons, 73 units on land near a Northeast Charlotte church, and 194 new beds for the shelter on Statesville Avenue. Councilman Malcolm Graham says COVID-19 has increased and magnified the need for affordable housing.
It's impacted in a tremendous type of way. One of the major variables is to shelter in place. And when you don't have a home or a place to call home to do that, it makes it extremely difficult.
Graham is in charge of the city's COVID-19 Affordable Housing Task Force. It will be looking at things like, should leaders develop on city-owned land? Should the city pursue container or tiny homes? And if voters approve an additional $50 million in November, should it be spent differently?
The affordable housing problem in Charlotte has always been bad. We're making great strides. This just added another layer of uncertainty.
As for Miner, she says any and all help is needed.
It most definitely is hard.
So Joe, how do you think this pandemic will now affect the future bond campaigns?
Erica, the good news is the city is in great financial health, and at this point they can still put that $50 million affordable housing bond referendum on the November ballot. So that will still happen. The talks are now about how that money will be spent if voters approve it, and Councilman Malcolm Graham is asking people to email him with ideas on how that money should be spent should it be approved. Erica?
All right, Joe, thank you. One of the helplines for our neighbors in need is Crisis Assistance Ministry. Its primary mission is to keep people from being evicted or from having their utilities cut off. The director told me today that the need right now is unprecedented. Now, we have seen so many families on the verge of being kicked out of hotel and motel rooms. Tell me what you all have been able to do to keep them from being put out.
That was the big shock in March that you recall, when all of a sudden, on 2 hours notice, someone who had lived in a hotel, sometimes for years, most times for many, many months, found themselves being kicked out. And so as the financial emergency room of Charlotte, we were asked, and we came together and created a stopgap system, and we were able to stop 1,300 families and their children from being evicted from hotels over a 5-week period.
Now, meeting that need took $700,000. The agency can also help people with mortgage payments. And when eviction courts reopen on June the 1st, the need will only grow. If you are able, Carol Hardison says 100% of the donations right now are going toward rent and utility payments for people in need. Now you can text to give, just text the word dignity to 91999 or donate online at crisisassistance.org. If you need help, we want to get you connected. We've created a county-by-county housing resource guide. It's on WSOCTV.com under our community tab. For each of our 22 counties, there's a specific list of organizations that can help. And we've also created a Spanish version of the guide. We have a lot more to cover tonight, including a mother who says she left abuse for a shelter, and now she has a home. You'll want to hear about her journey and the new business that she launched along the way. And believe it or not, researchers say millennials are the hardest hit by this housing crisis. One young woman's story and how to get help. Plus,
And one thing I'm not going to do is see my kids on the street.
this mother's plea for help answered. No money for rent until one organization stepped in to help. And they want to help other families too. No age group, race, or gender is immune to this housing crisis, especially during a pandemic. But you might be surprised to hear that young adults are being hit especially hard. Many started working during the Great Recession, and now, as Jason Stojenki shows us, they're in another uphill battle.
Dominique Rice is 30 years old, a millennial, and an entrepreneur.
I had a franchise of college nanny sitters and tutors, so I sold that last year, and I do consulting, so I help small businesses grow and scale. We've had ups and downs over the last 8 years in business, but I've never experienced anything like this.
She lives here just outside Uptown in a trendy new apartment building, which she was able to afford until recently.
It's really hard right now.
One of the big credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, recently did a study and found of everyone struggling financially right now, millennials have it the hardest. It says 61% of millennials can't pay for shelter, compared to 57% for other age groups. Even worse, it concluded 48% of millennials have seen their work hours reduced, compared to 32% for everyone else. And the research shows 58% of millennials have kids living at home, 36% for other generations.
So my life direction, has been inspired by, the recessions. You can't, you want to be as safe as possible.
Others have similar stories they shared with me on Facebook, like Marissa Prince, 31 years old, lives in Kings Mountain, and still has a job, but trouble paying rent. And another viewer, 25 years old, married, who wrote she and her husband have always been on time with rent, but can't afford to stay with our unemployment amounts we receive. So what do you do if you can't pay rent? First, don't overlook the obvious. Talk to your landlord. See if he or she will give you a discount or set up a payment plan. Chances are your landlord rather gets something than nothing during this tough time. Just make sure you get everything in writing, especially how much money you owe and when. But remember, your landlord doesn't have to bend. He or she has the right to demand the full amount and on time. That said, if things go south, your landlord can't kick you out right now. He or she would need to take you to court, and courts aren't hearing eviction cases until June, so you can stay put for now.
I started my business in college, and
Dominique Rice says she talked to her landlord. It worked.
My apartment complex has been really flexible, and they set up payment options with limited or no fees, and they've been really, really understanding.
If they weren't understanding, would you be able to handle it?
No, I couldn't handle it on time, no.
Jason also says if your lease is up, your landlord can legally raise your rent. The pandemic won't change that. But again, your landlord cannot evict you until the courts hear these landlord-tenant cases again starting on June 1st. If you need help, contact legal aid at 1-855-797-3247. With 36 million Americans filing for unemployment during this health crisis, paying the rent can be even harder, but there is some good news. Our partners at the Charlotte Business Journal report that nearly 85% of families in Charlotte paid their rent for May. That's still nearly 3% less than this time last year. But here's the positive. That is up considerably from the 75% of people who paid their rent in April. That leaves those 25% of people not paying still playing catch up. Our Gina Esposito introduces us to a family who fell behind and then asked for and got help.
Angela Short is eagerly waiting for her stimulus check. She lost her restaurant job and her husband's hours were cut. They're currently behind on May's rent and utility bills.
We paid our light bill in like 3 months.
Last month, the reality of their situation set in. Her landlord sent this text saying April's rent for their Waxhaw home was past due. That's when Short reached out to Union County Crisis Assistance Ministry, which immediately took care of their payment.
A parent will do whatever they got to do for their kid. And one thing I'm not going to do is see my kids on the street, and I'm not going to see my kids separated.
There are others like Short that worry about losing their home. That's why Union County Crisis Assistance Ministry partnered with Union County Community Action, DSS, and Community Shelter of Union County to form a task force. Their goal is simple: to keep people housed, especially over the next couple of weeks when landlords start filing evictions.
So it could be rental assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance. Not every agency, but some agencies are looking at things like car assistance, because in a rural county like this, without your vehicle, you're so limited to the work that you can find.
Melissa McCowan with the Community Shelter of Union County says they don't know how many people will need their help, but it could be hundreds. They've housed 600 families over the last 6 years, and many of them are at risk of falling behind on payments. So far, the agency has secured a $20,000 grant from United Way of Union County so they can assist 20 families. The task force hopes to do more in the coming weeks.
When referrals come in, they'll be on a shared document that we will staff each week, and we think that that will prevent anyone from slipping through the cracks.
Angela Short is a testament to that.
They even called me since then, checking on me to see, is everything okay? You're good? Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. We need more people like Crisis.
Yes, we do. The organizations that Gina mentioned help Union County residents with their rent. By helping renters, they say it also helps landlords stay afloat. There are several numbers you can call, and they're inside Gina's story on our WSOC TV News app. A motel on a mission to give needy families a home. The manager there showed us challenges the pandemic is creating, but also opportunities for kindness. A motel manager in Statesville has made it her mission to help struggling families find affordable homes. And she was successful, but then the pandemic hit and the need for help tripled. She showed our Brittany Johnson how she's working to meet the challenge.
We first introduced you to Denise Giroux in October. She manages Brookwood Inn, the motel off I-40 in Statesville that dozens of families call home.
That's everything table.
And when some fall behind on their payments, like this grandmother, Giroux raises money to cover their costs through her Facebook page, Acts of Kindness Family Ministry. She even helps some find permanent housing.
For all this, things were going pretty well, I would say, under the circumstances. Okay, I would consider it a success rate, because even if one family leaves, that's success to me.
Like Sally. Since our last report, Giroux says Sally and her granddaughters have moved into a home. But the COVID-19 crisis quickly cost many others here their jobs and ability to pay.
Then when stimulus checks started to come, I had myself and 2 other people gave their entire check. I had people give half.
Given the need, that money got used up quickly, but the need persists. While some wait for unemployment, for others, there is no relief in sight. Right now, about 54 of the rooms here are occupied, but about 15 are struggling to pay their balances, some as high as $1,200, and most of those rooms are filled with families. Shiro says some owe as much as $1,200.
We try to do everything we can to keep them from being kicked out. But there comes a point where if you don't make enough money to pay your bills, it's not a matter of kicking them out, it's a matter of not being open. It's a matter of those who do pay having nowhere to go.
As long as the motel breaks even, they're open. Thanks to donations, she's able to provide meals and activities for kids. And they're not removing longtime guests who may be considered tenants under the law. But the state's moratorium on evictions ends in June. Concerned about what will happen to families with mounting debt, Shiro continues raising money online and holding Bible study here to help families keep their faith.
God is always in control. I try my best not to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or a month from now. I try to deal with what I have to deal with today. So today, we have a place to sleep and food to eat. We're okay today.
Yeah, by grace. Well, regardless of whether you live in a motel or apartment, if you need help paying your rent, call 211. You can learn more about rental assistance programs in your area. Next, a woman who lived in a shelter, then a hotel. Now, thanks to some help, she and her children have their own apartment. Wait until you see how one decision made such an impact in her family's life. Next. Tonight, many of life's other challenges go on despite COVID-19. A local mom found herself in crisis and had to make a drastic change. And now with a little help, she's coming out strong.
I'm trying not to cry.
With her children by her side, Ebony Etherly paused a moment to collect herself. She's been on an emotional journey.
I was in a very toxic relationship for a long time, and I fled the situation last August 2019.
She found emergency shelter at the Salvation Army Center of Hope. After 7 months, thanks to $11 million that Mecklenburg County dedicated to affordable housing before the pandemic, they moved her to a hotel and now a new home with rent paid for the next year.
They transitioned us to an apartment, a beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment on April 9th, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Space for the children to run around.
While they play, Mom is getting busy, working towards what's next.
It made me think on a whole different level of responsibility and how to be able to protect my children, how to investigate and research and having multiple streams of income, how that would be also beneficial to my children and I.
So she's already started her own business.
People are going to always find a way to eat desserts, and that's what I do. I bake for a living, so I social distance myself and did curbside, did drop-offs, deliveries.
And Ebony told me she went back to the staff at the shelter with a promise that the decision to give her this opportunity is one they won't regret.
I just really thank them and just so grateful for them to just believe in me and allow me this second chance to help me rebuild myself.
The program that helped Ebony is called Mech Home. That county funding helped move 200 people out of the shelter in just a matter of weeks and will subsidize their housing for up to 2 years. Want to thank everyone for watching tonight. And remember that we are all in this together, and we want to use our Channel 9 platform to help. Our 22 county resource guide is on WSOCTV.com, on our WSOC TV News app. Look under Community. We hope you stay safe. We hope you have a great weekend. Good night.